When I started to work with some people that only knew me in my new life, they had this perception that I had a Jerry Maguire moment where I walked into the office with my goldfish at the bottom of my personal life and decided to walk away from everything, walk away from the money, walk away from the career, and go figure this all out, and ultimately made a profession out of it. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I changed my life working 12 plus hours a day. I changed my life going to business dinners. I changed my life having to be a busy parent, dad, coach. I changed my life trying to have my marriage be saved from the brink of divorce while I was sitting in your seat. And that's why I am the most qualified person to help you, because I was you. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Brian, and thank you so much for being back with me on my show, the Success Lift Podcast. Welcome back. Happy Monday. I hope you're listening when this first drops. I have so many people who reach out to me early Monday morning, sometimes before I even get up, because they get up even earlier than I do because they're on a different time zone. I'm on Pacific Standard Time. I'm up at 4, 5 in the morning, but some people get up at 4, 5 in the morning on a Monday, and one of the first things they do is listen to the show. And how cool is that? How humbling is that? Man, I appreciate that so much. So if you are doing that, if it is early Monday morning, welcome to another phenomenal week. And if you're listening to this later on in the week or in sometime in the past, that's awesome too. And I appreciate you. I can't thank everyone enough who has been sharing the show over the last month or so. You know, we're growing. Obviously, we started to put the episodes on YouTube. The subscriber base on YouTube is slowly but steadily growing, and that's incredible to see. So cool to hear from people who have found the show recently, either directly to me, communicating directly with me, or vis-a-vis the person who introed them to me. And very often I hear, and I'm telling you this for a reason, very often I hear, you know, things like, wow, what a great message. He's speaking directly to me. I feel like he's talking right at me. I feel like he knows me. Hint, I do. And then usually it's followed up by like, wow, what a good message this is. What a great podcast that was. What a great message, whatever. Who is this guy? Who the hell is this guy? And so I thought, I've been thinking about this for the last month or so. You know, would it make sense for me to reintroduce myself? Allow myself to reintroduce myself. And so I'm going to spend hopefully just, several minutes on this show this week, just kind of going over my story and telling you a little bit about me. And don't worry, if you're an OG and you've been here for 200 plus episodes, there'll be a nugget or two in here for you. You might know my story pretty well. You might know me pretty well, but there'll be some information and value in here for you as well. But this is really meant to cover like who the heck I am, where the hell I came from, and why it is that I'm here and what I'm here to do. And, also just as important, why I am the most qualified person that you could be listening to. And I'll make my case for that. There's a lot of really qualified people out there. There's a lot of great information out there. I'm going to tell you why I'm number one. All right. Now, before we do that, I would like to thank some recent 5-star ratings that showed up on Apple Podcasts and one review. We got another review. Thank you for listening and following through on my request to leave another review. It had been a couple months. My man, Richie Party of 6, left a 5-star review, and it's titled Value Add Show. Brian's show is a complete value add to my weekly routine. I appreciate his easy to follow candor and the clarity that accompanies his message. Highly recommend this podcast to all men out there, LFG. Thank you, Richie Party of 6. And don't forget, we got some women that listen to this podcast too. And so if you're a woman that listens to the podcast and you enjoy it and you get value out of it, I know you're out there because I get feedback from you. I appreciate you so much. What I wanted to discuss a little bit this week, when you start a show, when you start a podcast, you kind of start with like your story, your origin story, your backstory. And then usually once in a while, you kind of tell it again, in between, because you pick up people that come in along the way. Obviously, the people who listen to this show on a regular basis are not the same people who listen to it on day one. There are more, thankfully. There are more. There could be more. We could keep doing this. We keep sharing the show, and we could keep growing this a little bit faster. It's okay if we do that. It's okay if we do that. But those of you who are here, some did not listen to the first 100 episodes or 150 episodes. And so maybe you don't have a great feel for who I am, why I'm here, what I'm doing. And so that's my intention with this, hopefully, pretty short message. And so I figured I would just literally start from the beginning. My name is Brian Pannuzzo. How are you doing? Thanks for being here. I am a father of two amazing kids, Hudson and Mila. I am the husband to, I have no idea how I landed this woman, Tasha Blasi. Tasha Blasi Pannuzzo. I think it's she goes as Tasha Blasi. Sometimes I feel like I'm Brian Blasi because she just runs the show. But she is an incredible, incredible woman that still hasn't figured out that she's way too good for me. And we have been married for just about 17 years. We're pushing 17. End of May will be our 17th anniversary. We've known each other for over 20 years. Man, what an amazing decision that was. And what incredible things we have created and will continue to create in our lives. I was born and raised in Bergenfield, New Jersey, which is in Bergen County, which is right outside of Manhattan. I was a sports kid. I played all different sports throughout my life. I went to an all-boys Catholic high school called Bergen Catholic, which is a pretty popular, kind of now national powerhouse sports school. And I wanted to play sports. I was a basketball and a baseball player growing up for the most part, but I wanted to focus on basketball and played 4 years there. Was a great player. Went to St. Michael's College in just outside of Burlington, Vermont, on a basketball scholarship to play basketball. By the way, shout out to St. Michael's College, class of 1999, that I'm a part of. We are about to celebrate our 25th college reunion, I guess it's called. I graduated from college 25 damn years ago. I mean, that's wild. You might be able to almost see my basketball there up on the shelf that one of the coaches had made for me. It just has my points and my rebounds and my years played. I was a good basketball player. I had a great 4 years there. Incredible experience. Why I'm telling you all this is because, when you play sports, you look up to the guys on the team. And when I came onto the team, when I came onto campus, I had some older guys that I really, really look up to. One of them was a high school teammate of mine. And so I followed him to St. Michael's from Bergen Catholic, and he was a couple years ahead of me. And so he was very established on campus already. He had 2 phenomenal years to start his career there. And basically, whatever those guys did, I wanted to do. And all of those guys were business and economics majors. A lot of them were double majors. And so I came onto campus. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And I was like, I'm going to be a business and economics major. And that made sense to me because I lived right outside of New York City. Obviously, it's the financial capital of the world, of the universe. And I thought, yeah, cool. All these guys, they're from either Boston or from New Jersey and New York. They're business and economics majors. They're going to go to school for 4 years. They're going to get a job on Wall Street. And that's exactly the path that I started down. And when I look at it, 25 years later, or now 29 years later from when I even started that, I didn't know that I was making a decision at the age of 17, literally at the age of 17, that would shape the next 23 and now even longer years of my life. I played 4 years at St. Michael's. I was going to go to Europe and play. I was pretty good. I could have played professionally in Europe. I actually pursued it. I was going to get my Italian citizenship, become a dual citizen, play in Italy or in one of the other countries. It made it a lot easier to play as a European citizen for a number of reasons that are not really important right now. And just took me a little too long to actually get the whole passport process figured out. And I felt this calling to start my career. Let me back up real quick. During the summers of college, I would play basketball and I would work internships on Wall Street. And so I got this introduction to, the sort of corporate lifestyle. I got this, sort of feeling that like, oh, I'm just supposed to, wake up and get on the bus and go into the city every day and grind and create a career. And I saw the guys that, I was working for, and they went to great, steak dinners and drank a lot of wine, and it looked like a pretty cool life. They drove really nice cars. They talked a lot of shit on the desk. They had fun. Like, it was really fun. It's a really, really fun environment. I did an internship in the World Trade Center, and it was like really, really fun. And so, that's kind of what I thought my life was supposed to become. And I didn't really think a whole lot about it. And after I graduated and I thought about going overseas, and it was just taking too long, I was like, I got to get started. All my friends were in training programs, entering their careers. And I was like, when is this going to start for me? And so I finally did start that in December of 1999. I started working at Merrill Lynch in their financial advisor training program. And I did that because all the institutional trading programs had already started in August and September. And so I couldn't get into any of those anymore, because I had chosen to continue this, I wouldn't even call it a dream, but this idea to play a little bit of basketball once I got out of college. And when I sort of hung up my sneakers and my jersey, for the time being, and went on to Wall Street, that was the best place for me at the time. And so I started at Merrill Lynch and ultimately transitioned into the institutional side of the business. About 3 years in, I got hired at UBS to work on one of their internal prop desks as a high yield trading assistant. And that was my first introduction to, working on a trading desk as a professional. I did as an intern, as a college student. And that was a start for me. That was a start, and I really never looked back from 1999 on. And, I say, kind of casually, but it really, really did happen. Life started to happen fast for me. Life really started to happen fast for me. I started to get paid, very good money. The structure on the institutional side of the business was, a reasonable salary, pretty good salary, and then hopefully a really good bonus. And that's how a lot of people that I still know to this day live their life. They get paid a great salary that would probably be, acceptable to most of America, if not, in the 1% of most America. And then most likely and hopefully they get paid a very large bonus. And that bonus is dependent upon a number of things. Your performance, the firm's performance, the market, the economy, the environment, whether or not, some dude two rows down doesn't blow a hole in the side of the boat and lose a bunch of money. Sometimes it can be very arbitrary and subjective, but for the most part, you get paid really, really well. And, looking back, like life's happened to me fast. It started to happen to me fast. And when I say that, I mean, like, we just, I started to live the very prototypical Wall Street professionals lifestyle that you see out there. I was out 2 to 3 nights a week, whether it be as a client or with clients. I drank a lot. I went to great dinners. We went to cool sporting events. I did, kind of whatever drug was around. I had pedestrian vices in every area: gambling, drinking, drugs, you name it. I did it. But I was your consummate professional. And what I mean by that is I always showed up. I never missed a day. I never was that guy that ended up in the ditch. I didn't black out and not know where I was. I didn't not answer the bell, we call it. Answering the bell, showing up the next day. And I built a life around that lifestyle. And what I mean by that is, I made a certain amount of money and I did a lot of cool things, and that required me to continue to make a certain amount of money. And I did a lot of cool things. And obviously I matured a little bit, and I, met my wife in my late 20s or so. And while I guess I got a little bit more mature and, started to settle down a little bit, I really never left that lifestyle. I never left the belief that this was a required element in order for me to be a successful professional. And that's where I want to sort of kind of narrow in my focus with you right now. I had believed that there was this cost of doing business for me. I believed that there was a lifestyle that I needed to live in order to be successful and achieve a certain level of success. If you looked at my life, on the surface, it looked great. All right. I'm a big guy. If you don't know, I'm 6'6". I know you can't tell with me sitting down, but I'm 6'6". At the time, I was probably 230 35 to 40 pounds. I played basketball in college at about that weight, maybe a little bit lighter than that, but I was jacked in college. And by the time I finished college, and I definitely was not jacked at 235, 240 in my, late 20s, early 30s, working on Wall Street. And so I kind of convinced myself that I wasn't, that worse off, because everybody I know put on 20, 30, 40 pounds after school. And I didn't. And I'm tall, so I carried it pretty well. And, I kind of realized at one point, I was like, oof, man, I'm not in good shape. I think I might be in good shape, but I'm not in good shape. I'm not in good shape. And my life, like I said just previously, my life on the surface looked pretty good. I made really, really good money. I had a nice house. I was a member at a country club. I was on the, the board of trustees at the country club. I had nice cars. We went on nice vacations. I was articulate. I didn't, miss days of work. I was good. I was good on the surface. And every year, income would go up and our spending would go up, and income would go up and our spending go up, and my habits would accumulate a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And the choices that I was making were steadily accumulating. And compound interest, most of you know the power of it. It can accumulate for us, and it certainly can accumulate against us. And man, were the choices that I was making accumulating against me. And this kind of went on for a good 15 years or so, where successful career, okay, looking, okay, feeling, never doing anything too crazy to, jeopardize my marriage, my career, my whatever, my reputation. But, really living a life that did not align with ultimately the values that I have today, or truly that I had deep down then. And it all kind of came to a head about 10 years ago. My mom passed away 9 years ago now from ALS. And about 10 years ago, around this time is when her symptoms really started to become like obvious. For a period of like 6 months or so, she was like slowly declining. She would fall now and then. She would choke on food. For those of you who don't know, it's a neurological disease. It slowly shuts the body down. It affects different areas of your body at different times. For a lot of people, their speech gets affected right away. Some of their motor controls, their motor functions get affected. For my mom, her throat got affected, and some of her coordination. She would just like fall. She would just be like walking in my house on a Sunday. My parents would come over a lot, and she would just like fall. And a couple times she would just start choking on her food. And then it was obvious she was like slurring a little bit. And quite honestly, I was like, dude, is mom drinking like fucking bottles of white wine? And without me knowing, like before she comes over, is she like getting hammered? Because she's falling down and she's like slurring a little bit. And my parents, my mom especially, were never ones to like love doctors. And so she never really went to a doctor right away. And long story short, around this time, I think like June of 2014, she was officially diagnosed with ALS. And I didn't even know what ALS was at the time. I had to like start looking it up. And as soon as you start looking it up, you start to panic, because it's effectively a death sentence for people. And not only is it fatal, ultimately, it really, really is difficult for your quality of life during the end. And it's difficult on the person, obviously, who's dying, but it's also really difficult on the people around the loved one. And I wasn't even the primary caretaker. My amazing sister was. And my dad had to live with my mom too. Like, we lived in our own house. I got to see my mom a lot. I went out of my way when my mom was in the hospital. I would go see her, almost daily, as much as I could. But like, I didn't have to do like the really, really, really hard things. But obviously it affected me in a really, really negative way. And so why I give you some of this context is because I basically took my Wall Street lifestyle that was already unhealthy, drinking, drugs, gambling, sedation, constant just like avoidance of feelings, avoidance of pain, avoidance of stress. And I took all of that and I crumbled it up and I just buried it inside. And I took my vices and I just put them on steroids. And so I started to drink more. I started to do more drugs. I started to gamble more. And I really took my life in a matter of 6 months from being, just okay and pretty good on the surface to like a disaster. I was drinking heavily most nights. I was gambling a shit ton. I was doing drugs. You name it, I was doing it. Didn't matter what it was. You had it, I was doing it. I had to do drugs just to sort of like numb myself to get through the moments of like hanging out with my mom in a hospital room when it was like my turn to be with her. We kind of would all take turns, you know, when she was in different hospitals. So someone was kind of always with her. And it was really, really hard. My mom, unfortunately, sadly passed away in January of 2015. And obviously there was a little bit of relief there at the end because she was finally not in pain anymore. And we didn't have to go through it anymore either. But what happened after that was really the thing that the catalyst for me is my wife came to me about a month or so afterwards and, you know, kind of delivered a message that she was not really happy with our relationship. And I didn't know it at the time. And she kind of said she wasn't really considering it. But I truly ultimately felt like she was going to divorce me if I didn't change. And that threw me into a bit of a tailspin of like, first, number one, playing victim of like, how could you ever do this to me now? I took a complete victim role. Like, I can't believe you're doing this. My mom just died, right? Why wouldn't you go easier on me? Why wouldn't you let me do all my drugs and let me drink and let me be who I want to be? Like, look at what we've created behind us. We have a beautiful house. We have a nice family. We have country clubs. We have this. We take vacations. Aren't you grateful for that stuff? But thankfully, my wife knew that I was capable of more, and she knew that we were capable of more and that we deserved more. And so she didn't really demand it at the time, but like ultimately what's come from that is me turning into the person that I am today. And what I did was I didn't know what I was doing when my wife delivered that message to me. I just knew that I had to do something different. And what I did was I attacked my physical body, mostly because I just like did it out of spite. Like, my wife is not going to want to be around me. At least I'm going to get into ridiculous shape. And so I just started to make more promises to myself to keep my fitness at a level that, you know, was more acceptable. I realized that I was broken down. I realized that I had joint pain. I realized that I walked around, you know, 20 or 30 pounds overweight. I realized that I was not an athlete anymore. And I was telling myself this story that, like, you know, all these things were the cost of the business that I had to do as a successful professional. And that's something that I want you to really listen to me say and hopefully internalize and analyze for yourself. I believed that there was a cost to doing business as a corporate professional, as an elite performer inside the office, as a high earning professional. I thought that cost was being overweight, drinking too much, doing drugs, gambling, not having a marriage that was on fire. I thought that these are all things that I had to sign up for in order to get the financial success and the professional success that I had. And thankfully, that is a complete false narrative. And I have been able to break that down, and I've been able to build a new story for myself, because so many people that I speak to believe that they're just stuck in this life that they can't get out of because they don't want to give up the money that they're making, or they do enjoy their career. They may not love it, they enjoy it, but they don't know what else that they would do. And they're kind of stuck at this point in their late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, early 50s, whatever. And I just want everyone to sort of think about, like, the choices that you're continuing to make are accumulating. They're accumulating. Compound interest is a massively powerful force. And you are going to have those forces continue to inflate. Inflation, also very, very powerful. And at some point, you are going to have to pay these debts that you are accumulating. You are taking too many withdrawals out of the bank without enough equity, without enough deposits in there. And that's what happened to me. And that moment in 2015, I realized I was close to being broke. I was close to being broke inside of my habits, inside of my discipline, inside of me being the professional that I wanted to be outside of the office. I had the inside the office taken care of. But outside the office, I was broke. I was broken down physically, but I was broke. I didn't have any currency. I didn't have any equity built up. And so I went to work. I went to work on myself. I went to work on my physical body. I started to discover new education platforms. I started to discover podcasts. I just mentioned at the beginning of the show. I discovered podcasts. I started to listen to podcasts on the way into work, on the way out of work. While I was moving around, I got more educated. I clearly had an interest between the connections between nutrition and lifestyle and neurological diseases. That was fresh on my mind. And so I took a deep dive there for myself, and I found a lot of connections between the things we do from a lifestyle perspective and ultimately, potentially neurological diseases or any diseases, chronic disease for that matter, how those play a part and how connected they are. And I just started to slowly swap vices, one good for bad, bad for good. I started to take home, less research reports, K's and Q's and things like that, less analyst reports. And I started to listen to more information. I started to read more books. In fact, some of the books that I still have on my bookshelf, I keep for a reason. This is one of the first books I ever read, Sleep Smarter, by a guy named Sean Stevenson, who we ain't boys, but privileged to call him a friend now. So shout out to Sean for all the impact that you've had in my life, man. I appreciate you. I see him in gyms sometimes around LA. Our kids play travel basketball, not together, but like you see the same people at the same tournaments, and saw him in Arizona about a month or so ago. And it's cool. It's cool to see the relationships you can build in your life. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it's like, that man influenced me in a really, really big way to do some of the things I'm doing today. And now I know him personally, Anyway, so I started to read stuff and started to understand I don't have to wake up 5 times a night. I don't have to struggle with my sleep. Here are some easy tools that I can implement into my life in order to improve it. And just started to make some massive changes, really, really massive changes. And here's one aspect of my story that I want to hone in on, okay? Because I say all the time, I am an expert. I'm an expert at you, okay? You, because I was you, all right? I know exactly what it's like to live your life. Now, why am I an expert at you? Here's the really important part. I had a misunderstanding that everyone who paid attention to me sort of understood this part of my story, that I spent 15 years digging a hole, realized that I had to get the hell out of my hole, and went to work on myself. But I still showed up every day to work. I still had to go out 2 to 3 nights a week. I still was dad. I still was trying to repair a marriage from the brink of divorce. I still was coaching my kids. I still was doing things that I wanted to do inside my life while I was sitting in my seat inside of corporate America. And when I started to work with some people that only knew me in my new life, they had this perception that I had a Jerry Maguire moment where I walked into the office with my goldfish at the bottom of my personal life and decided to walk away from everything, walk away from the money, walk away from the career, and go figure this all out, and ultimately made a profession out of it. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I changed my life working 12 plus hours a day. I changed my life going to business dinners. I changed my life having to be a busy parent, dad, coach. I changed my life trying to have my marriage be saved from the brink of divorce while I was sitting in your seat, while I was working 12 plus hours a day, while I was traveling for business. I am not special. Nothing about me is special other than my willingness to show up and do this every single day. And so if I can do it, you can do it. And my programs show you how to do it. And that's the elevator pitch. And that's why I am the most qualified person to help you, because I was you. And in many instances, I am still you. I may be 10 years ahead of you at some point. I may be 10 minutes ahead of you at some point, because I am still trying to figure it out. I love the quote, "You're most qualified to help the person you used to be." You are most qualified to help the person you used to be. You were born to do something great with your life. Now don't you don't need to go find your purpose and quit your job and grab your goldfish. But you were born to do something great. I promise you that. I know I was. I know I am. I know I'm doing it right now. I know I'm doing it right now. And so it's really important that everyone understands that I lived the life that most people live. I accepted the costs that we had to pay as fact, as truth. You don't have to accept that. You don't have to do these things. You can create whatever life you want. Will it look perfect? Will it look exactly like you want it to? Probably not, especially not when you start. But you can continue to chip away and to craft that as much as you want. You can chip away at the statue of David that is underneath your body right now, underneath your mindset right now, inside of your relationship. It's already there. The person you are with right now is probably the person you should be with. You just need to make it the greatest relationship ever. How do you do that? Make yourself the greatest person ever first. Make your side of the street so clean that anyone can show up and eat off of it, right off the ground. Take full responsibility for your situation that you have created for yourself. Nobody has created this situation for you. There are things that are outside of your control. Of course there are. But there is so much inside of your control. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm not special. If I can do this, you can do it. If I can show you how, if I can help you along the way, let me know. You can consume information like this, content like this. You can go to my email list, go to thesuccesslift.com/join. You can get daily content there. Follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram. Tell a friend about this one. I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you back here next week.